Sakamoto Days, Episode 8, Sakamoto's versus the Lab. It's time to learn about Shin. So let's talk about it. All right, so we got a lot more action going on this episode. And with this, we're going to learn more about Shin's background and what he's essentially about, how he got his powers. So pretty much we got Horiguchi who's still in there handling business with his injections and flip switches and whatever he's got. He tags Sakamoto with a needle that makes him invert his attacks. So he goes to attack an enemy, redirects him towards a friend. If he goes to attack a friend, then it can redirect him towards the enemy, or depending on if a switch is hit, can change that up. And that's kind of what we see. Asaka tries to attack him, ends up hitting Shin. He goes to attack Shin, ends up nailing Horiguchi, but Horiguchi ends up hitting another switch to make him pretty much pull his punches whenever he's about to hit a friend target. So he's manipulating all over the board. So while this is going on and they're trying to figure out a way to deal with that, we got Asakura and Shin flashback. Basically, Lou's down there talking to him, kind of gets some information, and finds out that Shin, who is an avid juice drinker, he likes to drink. Finds out that a friend of Asakura is named Ando, which we don't know if this is Shin's father or not, or whoever Ando is. But Ando leaves Shin with Asakura at the lab and disappears. And we see that Shin is just kind of, hey, what's going on? Old guy, like, what's this? What's that? I'm thirsty. And eventually they kind of start to form a little bond. You see that Asakura falls asleep at his desk with a blanket on him, while Shin is on the floor with the same blanket on him. And they're kind of having, a bond. He basically becomes his father figure, which is, great. You got to have somebody to latch on to a bond when you're just kind of left abandoned, so to speak. So with that being said, as they kind of learn each other, Asakura is still working on his ability to unlock the brain, more of the brain's potential, learn more about superpowers and everything involved in that arena with the brain. And while he's doing his research, Shin just kind of learns a little bit as he goes, but he doesn't really care too much for it. Till one night, he sleepily walks in and is like, "Hey, I'm thirsty," after he done finally unlocked the ability something, and Shin comes in and just grabs a beaker and downs the entire potion. And without thinking twice about it, Asakura's like, "What happened? Are you okay?" Shin barfs, and he's good, but he's like, "That was nasty." The next day, while getting a bath, Shin starts to read thoughts without thinking twice about it. It just sort of happens. And Asakura's got to kind of double take, like, was I thinking it? Or did I say it out loud? And basically, we kind of get the montage of him using his powers and kind of calling everybody out as far as like, hey, you're thinking about this lady and you're thinking about he's gross, and all this kind of chains on. But because of this slowly ostracizes Shin from everybody as he's showcasing his powers more and more. He's able to read cards and everything, but they're like, yeah, it's kind of creepy to be around. He's kind of always reading the thoughts. I don't want to think stuff around him. Like, and again, your entire privacy is being invaded, and especially when anything comes to a child will tell the truth about everything. Like, hey, yo, I see this. They don't have an inclination to lie as well as anyone else, unless it comes to self-preservation. But just in the general just things, hey, he's just going spouting off whatever comes into his head. So again, all those mean thoughts they have about, I want to be around you, I want to play games with you, I want nothing, slowly ostracizes him, and eventually he ends up running away because he can't take it. He doesn't want to be, and he's just why he becomes a loner, and that makes sense for him becoming you know, the assassin, the hitman kind of character, and wanting to kind of go and do whatever, working solo. It fits. So during this process, of course, Lou gets emotional, and the other henchman gets emotional. Who the one who brought in Lou, thinking that was Shin. But eventually, Horiguchi kind of understands the family Sakamoto rules. Lou describes like, "Hey, we make up with each other by the end of the day," and he gets kind of a renewed sense of, you know what, let's get out of here. Because the only reason I was locked up in here is because I didn't want to help them with their experiments. But you kind of make some sense. So he gets some acid that he's got hidden, pours on a lock, breaks out, and Lou drops a axe kick down on one of the guys, and they start to make their escape. During this time, Haraguchi is still, flipping switches and, handling business with everybody, but he decides to, I'm finna get jacked. So after doing slow injections on, you know, an arm and a leg to be able to do these powerful punches, the six in his shoulder, he ends up dropping all those in. So all all traffic lights, red, yellow, and green activate, and he gets huge. So now he's finna scrap. And he basically calls Shin useless and his ability useless. And Sakamoto's like, yeah, well, I'm finna show you how not useless it is. So let's go. So after he devises a plan, because again, they're hitting all these switches to keep them from being able to attack each other, Saka ends up telegraphing all of his attacks to Shin with Shin standing in front of him. So Shin basically stands directly in front of Haraguchi. And again, as Sakamoto is calling out his attacks in his head, Shin is dodging them. So pretty much the attacks are missing Shin, nailing Haraguchi, and he is lighting him up with lightning fast speed. So it's great to see. It's hilarious. Haraguchi eventually ends up tapping out because he cannot, handle it. And after everything's said and done, they're proud of themselves. The other doctors there end up kind of getting those little switches out of them, the little nanites or whatever is injected in them, pulls all that stuff out, and Shin's pretty proud of himself. He dodged all of Sakamoto's punches, especially because he's a bigger guy now. His punches are definitely heavier, more devastating, and of course Sakamoto, you know, jabs him in the neck with a needle because it's like, hey, you ain't got to bring my weight into this. But I was excited. They decided to head through the lab and kind of figure out what's going on. So as they're running through the lab, a hole ends up opening up in the middle of the floor, and Sakamoto barely manages to kick Shin out the way while he falls into the hole. So they get separated. While this is going on, we actually see that we got Onigahara, which has got white hair, and then Takamito's got black hair, and they are lackeys for Kashima, the deer head guy. And he's telling them like, "Hey, I got these guys, and they're about to do some work." And with that being said, Shishiba and Osaragi are standing there, like, "Hey, they took out a bunch of minions. We need to deal with your boss. We're not really worried about you, so you kind of need to get going." And the henchmen are like, "Yo, we want to crack at him like ASAP." And Shishiba is not phased at all. He's just like, "Yo, you want it? Run them hands." Like he's not sweating him. So they rush him and rush right up like, "Hey, boss, can we take him out?" And boss is like, "Do what you do." And Osaragi asks, like, "Boss, can I?" He's like, "Give me a second." And before he could finish responding, they attack. And literally, only one really attacks with some stuff on his back, which I think is Onigahari. Has some like things come out his back without hesitation. I'm talking about with the most speed, like straight quick with it, lightning bolt. She takes them and takes both of them out in one fell swoop and drops them. And he was just like, so she was just like, "I'm just trying to get out the way because I didn't want to get, I wanted to get out the splash zone, but I did wear a cheap suit today just because I figured something like this would happen." Like, it's wild. Just straight up is wild how he's thinking about it. I'm not phased. So Kashima's upset and is like, "I'm not happy with this. Like, you made me mad." And basically, he ends up taking out some of his stitching in his arm, which reveals a hand of blades, more or less. It's like at least 10, 12 blades on his hand, something like that. And he jumps at Shishiba and swings at him immediately, taking out Tai and getting a little cut on his chest. And Shishiba immediately responds by snapping this dude's neck. Like, takes the hit, gets behind him, snaps his neck. And as they're walking away, Kashima stands up and was like, "Yeah, nope, my artificial spine is like, I ain't worried about that." So he is just made of, something going on because he ends up taking off his other hand and has a gun, you know, in there. And then he has some kind of like laser cannon come out his mouth. Like he is like stacked. He's ready to go. And in the process of him being stacked and ready to go, he's like, "Yo, we finna scrap." But right at the same time, Sakamoto falls out the ceiling and lands on Kashima. And now he's like, "Oh, you're the only one who ever hurt the master. It's you. So now I need to take you out. Like, I got to present you to the master," which is this, this slur guy. So with that being said, it's like, all right, well, what are we gonna do? We're gonna scrap. Shishiba's like, "All right, you got this. I'm gonna head out." And Sakamoto's like, "All right, tell everybody hi." And Osaragi's like, he's such a cuddly teddy bear. Just look at it. He's so cute. Look at that. And she's like, I don't think he's gonna survive. She's the newest member. He introduced her as the newest member of the order. But she's like, I don't think he's gonna survive. And she was like, yo, as long as I've known him, I have no doubts. Like, he'll be fine. And that's something that alludes to something Sakamoto said earlier. Is like, if it's one of the order versus like 10 of you, and he's talking to Shin, like all 10 of you will be done in less than 6 seconds. It's like that's each member of the order has their own particular strength in their own way. So he never says that one could beat the other, but says each are strong in their own way. So that's definitely something dangerous to worry about. And we just kind of saw a little bit of that, and we see more of Sakamoto. So yeah, it's they're really getting into the order and what kind of damage they can do. So this leaves Sakamoto to deal with Kashima, and then while that's going on, Shin, who got separated from Sakamoto, ends up running the hall, ends up running into Seba. So Seba, the chameleon cloak guy, he shows up and is like, I don't like to clock out early. I don't like overtime. I want to get my work done just the right time. So I'm gonna, toy with you and take you out for as long as possible until I can, be done with you, get my bonus because I'm trying to save up like 20 million yen before I get out of here or something like that. So he's basically attacking Shin, and Shin is able to telegraph where he is, but can't block his attacks because he can't see what type of attacks he's coming with. So Shin ends up taking a little bit of damage, and in the process of this, Shin sees a bird kind of fly across, gets a realization because Heisuke earlier saw saw the daughter, saw Hana crying, so that was like, I'll go find everybody because she wanted to talk about her parents' day at school, but she don't get to talk to everybody because nobody's there. So he's like, I'll go find them for you. So he runs off to go find them, and that's how he ends up getting into the fight. He's got his rifle, and basically once Shin takes one last hit, he ends up smearing the blood on the uniform that he's wearing, and that gives, Heisuke a good shot, and he's able to take Seba, by surprise. And that's just kind of what episode leaves off, kind of the setup, savior and the thing, and now we got Seba versus the two of them, and with him having his cloaking ability, it should be a little bit more, evenly matched now, with the kind of powers he has. So solid episode. I like we're getting more into the order. We got to see some of the order in action. So that's only fun. Kashima's got to be dealt with. It's a problem. And they keep mentioning the plumpiness of Sakamoto. So I do think that he's probably gonna shed some weight and go at it again, which seems to be his, max offensive capabilities. Again, so he's got that fat gum energy. He's gonna take all these attacks, take all this damage, but when he gets it down, he's going to go to work on somebody. So solid episode. We got Shin's backstory. We already know some Lou's backstory. So we're gonna start getting a couple more characters, more likely, with the order. Nagamo, Shishiba, Osaragi. We're gonna start learning more about them. Again, we got Heisuke, his backstory for the most part. Hey, I'm here for it. So Sakamoto is doing really good. So please, if you're enjoying the show, you're enjoying the content, make sure you hit that little subscribe button. Appreciate everybody, and I am looking forward to watching the next episode next week when it drops. So until then, I will catch you guys in the next one. Later.